Do you like to eat clean but still want a medium rare filet dripping in juices? The answer is to seek out meat raised by responsible farms, and no meat is better than the grass-fed, grass-finished beef from 1915 Farm. By going to my website, iamwoodstock.com, and visiting the Good Stuff page, you will find a link directly to the 1915 website along with $5 off your first order. For the most convenient and most cost-effective way to bring the 1915 experience to your kitchen, go for the Grassroots Club, which will supply a variety of grass-fed beef, pork, and chicken. In fact, the whole chicken slow cooked in an oven has been some of the best meat I personally have had in a long time. They offer free shipping to all of Texas and discounted shipping to the rest of the United States. If you are one of my listeners from another country, try seeking out small regenerative farms in your country to support a more sustainable future. This episode is also brought to you by Northeast Exploration Company. I visited Maine 6 years ago, and I've wanted to return ever since. So now that I'm on the road, I'm making it one of my first stops. And to show off my Mainer pride, I wear apparel from Northeast Exploration Company. They provide high-quality apparel with designs with a Northeastern flair. And it's super easy to order. Simply go to the Good Stuff page on my website, iamwoodstock.com, for a link, or go to northeastexplorationco.com to get your gear and support small business today. And welcome back to the show, everybody. Today I have the good fortune to sit down and have a conversation with a good friend and an inspiration. He has a huge heart and a brain to match. We discuss language, parenting, picking up new skills, and the fact that I'm an idiot. Please give a warm welcome to Alban.
I feel like it sticks more because it's like emotional.
Well, I'm definitely doing a lot of trial and error on this. I don't know how many times I've done something and just kicked myself incessantly for it. I'll always sleep over these stupid mistakes that I make. And well, one of them was the time that we sat down, and what was it? I think it was an hour and a half long, and I just didn't. I hit record. I think I'd hit it twice is the problem. I hit it and then I re-hit it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it turns green when it's not recording, it's green. When it's recording, it's red, which I guess if you're in the recording industry, that makes sense. But to me, I'm like, oh, green means go. So that just proves my idiocy.
That's a glitch in the matrix or the butterfly effect or something.
Yeah, let's blame it on Mandela.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, so I appreciate you spending the time to come chat one-on-one. We've done a few episodes. I've mentioned on some of my other episodes that I've done groups of guys just testing it out. You are one of those guys, and we had a recording session, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, not too much. Not too long ago.
But there's a bunch of us, and as we found out, with the more people there are, the more muddled it gets because everyone wants to talk, especially guys like you. You've been friends for a while and you're very close to each other. And so you like doing inside jokes and talking like over each other, which for me is hilarious. And I'm sure if I posted it, it'd be fun to at least be a fly on the wall
Try to
and
keep
see
up
how
with.
y'all. But
it's like spinning plates. Well, it's fun for everybody but the guy that's trying to keep up with it all.
And we're usually drinking pretty heavily when we're over there. So my wits are not at 100%. So I find myself just missing, like, what is going on? All of you are on point, knowing exactly what you're talking about, but I don't get the inside joke. So I'm just like, well,
it's like showing up to if you're like the rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, or you're Alice when you show up to the party, and you got the group of characters at the table, and you're just like, what's going on here, man?
That's how I feel. Well, I've moved around a bit, and everywhere I go, you have to learn a new culture. Mm-hmm. So when I came down to Texas, for example, I always felt like I was missing out on the joke. I'm certain that I would come off probably offensive a lot of the time to a lot of people because I just didn't know the culture. And thinking back on it and how people treated me, I think there was a big part in that they probably didn't realize that I wasn't from around here. And so I'd probably say something like guys instead of y'all. And people give me these weird looks like, are you trying to talk shit? Are you starting something here?
What are you getting at, partner?
Yeah. And when they realize that I'm harmless, then we become good friends and we hang out. But
Yeah.
each culture I've been to, you have these smallest little things that if you don't know what you're getting yourself into, you just need to be quiet, sit back and watch. Because I've stuck my foot in my mouth plenty of times everywhere I've gone. But Texas, I feel like I've not necessarily figured it all out, but I think 7 years is long enough to at least feel part of the normal
Yeah, man.
society.
I've been lucky to be able to go to Michigan and Florida and stuff, and it's different culture, and you got to be there for a while to get it. You know what I mean? And I'm sure Texas is no different.
Have you lived in? How long were you over there?
No,
Just
no, not at
visiting?
all. It was just an experience, honestly. And that's the unfortunate part. It's just long enough to kind of not get good at it to where you can make a difference, I guess, in a sense, because you don't know how to communicate properly or really understand the culture that's going on to like say something that's not maybe ignorant or respected to a sense. But I did Miramar by Miami, and man, that's talk about a hodgepodge of ethnic groups. I mean, you talk about Latin America, but it's a lot of countries. I mean, Marco would tell you the same thing. And then Michigan, and that's not like, hey man, and none of them it's like not American or Texas. It's just not what I'm used to as far as growing up in small country town. But man, like Michigan, it's just a different culture. Just being up there, I mean, just used to the cold, shoveling snow, throwing out the trash in the snow. Not used to that. So it's just an experience for me, and that's what I enjoy about it the most. So yeah.
So being up there compared to Texas, what are your pros and cons being in Texas versus a place like that? Obviously, snow is one of those things.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, I wish I had more experiences to really. Man, I've been frustrated down here about South Texas weather, right? Like you go, man, it's really hot. Like it's just ridiculous. But I've never been somewhere you go, this is agonizing cold for too long, except for recently. So I can say that. But up there, I feel like there's some parts where you get used to it because you've been there. You got the right apparel. I was preparing for springtime, and we just got the cold snap. But I'm sure I would hate a snowblower and all those things. But man, I really enjoyed the culture of the people, the forestry, the pine trees. Like the air was fresh. I really like going to places like I've been to Kentucky, and we did like a Habitat for Humanity with Texas Roadhouse one time, and it was just older buildings. And just I've never seen a house with a basement in Texas. Maybe northern Oklahoma, storm cellar, something like that. But this was different. Like it's a basement. Just different dwellings that are older because places like the original 13 the original colonies and stuff like that. It's just a lot older and it's still around and maintained. So I enjoy that part of I guess traveling more than picking out people or kind of what's going on at the time.
You like the history of it?
Yeah, I mean, it really speaks to me. Like, I think you got to really, if you want to really ultimately understand, you got to kind of get the roots of it. And that's just hard to get to my point of like, man, I was only at this place for 30 days or 14. It's really hard to really sink your teeth into it when you're doing business and not tourism.
Yeah. And even if you live there, because I've lived in places just for a few months. I did like 3 months in Indiana doing summer sales. And you start getting a feel of the people and the culture. And Midwest isn't too much different from the Rockies where I grew up. But you go to a place like I spent a month in Spain. I did a study abroad over there just for, I think it was just almost exactly a month. And there's no way that you can absorb a culture in that short of time. It took me probably at least 6 months of nonstop speaking Portuguese before I actually could enjoy a conversation with anyone over there. I could say sentences, but if two people were talking, I was just watching. I couldn't even say I was listening. It was just mumbo jumbo, and I'd pick up a word here and there. And I think the same goes for any culture. Even if you're speaking the same language, it's not really the same language. We all speak English, but when you come down to Texas, I would offend people because I just didn't know what I was doing. I wouldn't say yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. It's just not how I was raised. And to someone, from what I've heard in Texas, that's kind of a big deal. When you were a kid,
trained responses, like it's just like your parents would teach you Southern hospitality. You know what I mean? You go, it's not everybody's that nice, but for the most part, in New York, I have that thought of people that don't have the time of day to say hello or the small courtesies that really kind of help move along a interaction, I guess.
Well, it's important to a Texan, but to a New Yorker, they're probably just annoyed by it.
I gotta go, man. What do you want to gab about? Let's go.
Let's roll. Let's get to the point.
Give me the baby. I don't want the pregnancy.
Yeah, in Brazil, you're just gonna be late. It's expected to be late because it's incredibly rude if you pass someone on the street and you don't stop and say hello. If you can't just say, "Oh, hey, I'm busy. I gotta go." That's like end of friendship. I will never talk to my neighbor again.
You don't care about what I got going on today?
Exactly. Do you need any help with anything?
Yeah.
Nice to see you. Hasta luego. They don't say hasta luego because it's Portuguese.
Right.
But
you're more cultured than I am
tudo
so at this
bem,
point.
até mais. And then they show up 20 minutes late, but nobody cares because it's expected. Where me coming from I don't know, maybe it was how my parents were, maybe it was the culture I lived in my religion. I don't know what it is, but you're prompt. You get there 5 minutes early, or else you're 10 minutes late.
Yeah, 15 minutes early is on time.
Exactly. So you have these understandings of what you know is an objective truth. No, I got to be here on time. And then you go to a different culture and all of a sudden you're like, well, that was not an objective truth. That was just something that I thought was a standard that we all agreed on, but that's not the case.
Right.
So when you were in school, like grade school, I heard a lot of stories about Texans growing up back when we were kids, and pretty much the teacher could do whatever they wanted. Is that true?
No, I don't remember. Man, grade school for me, here in this town, man, it was, had different blocks at one point. I remember when taking us out of one class in 5th grade and having us go across the hall for the other half of the day. That was a huge deal. And one day our teacher came in with the rolly cart TV with the tie down straps like it was going somewhere on this rolly cart. Was like, man, check out this thing. And it was a really oversized tape player, but it was thin and silver. We were like, man, she's like, this is Sony makes this. Wow. And this isn't old. Like I'm not, like I'm 40. Player? No, it was a DVD player.
Oh,
but the CD was silver like a DVD or a CD, but it was the size of a record. And like she put it on top and closed it. Yeah, it was a laser disc basically. Yeah, and she was explaining the process, and they only had 30 minutes of data on there, like as far as a video, because we haven't perfected it yet. But yeah, man, school was that. I mean, we went in, we learned about states and stuff, but we played kickball, dodgeball, stuff like that. There's some bullying on the playground, 5th grade mischief stuff, but you'd get paddles. I guess that was the thing. I remember I got a spanking one time in the office and didn't even call my mom. It was just like, you're going to get it. And
see, like, that's the part that to me is crazy. I had what was it, 3rd grade. I was in Laramie, Wyoming, and this girl moved to our town from Texas. And she was in the corner about to cry, and we all went to her like, what's going on? She's like, I don't know what to do. I think the teacher's going to hit all of you. I'm like, what are you talking about? And well, you guys aren't calling her ma'am, and she's going to spank you, and I don't want that to happen. And we didn't know what she was talking about.
Yeah.
And that was the day I learned that people got beat down in Texas in grade school.
Nah, man, not my grade school.
You didn't get paddled?
Nah, I got a spanking one time by the principal, but I deserved it, and it wasn't more than I deserved. It wasn't. They weren't angry. You know what I mean? It was just like, man, you don't do that. Like this isn't something. We just got in a tussle, some boys, and we felt like pulling hair and throwing our small fists around and just hitting fat kids. And I was one of them. I was one of the chunkier kids, and we were just it was like 5 of us, and we were all good friends. Honestly, but they got a spanking. All of us got like 6 pats and whatever you want to call it.
You think it helped?
Man, I've only been. That's like the only time I ever got a spanking in my life. I only remember one other time. My grandpa was taking his belt off and like talking about how my mom had communicated to that I had been, I guess, ridiculous that week in some way. And he was explaining that, like that conversation, and he looked me in the eyes. He was taking this like belt off. That was like what an oil field worker wore, I guess, at the time. He was like, "You don't need me to spank you, do you, boy?" And I was like, "Nah." I was like, "No, sir." But it was like, "I'm good. I get it. I'm good. We won't now." So that's just been my deal with, I guess, punishment.
Do you believe in spanking with your own kids?
I slapped my daughter on the butt once when I think they were 2. They were getting out of the bath, and it was just like she had done something. I think she screamed real loud or something, and I went and I really just popped her. I mean, it was hard because it was quick, but she had a red mark on her butt, and I felt horrible as soon as I saw it. Man, I thought I was gonna cry. And then Aiden, he was like, and I looked at him. I was like, "Do you need one?" And he was like, "No." And I've never had to spank him. We've always had like adult conversations for the most part. Like I've always reasoned with them. I probably had conversations about stuff that they were too young for. But I mean, they're pretty mature, I think so. But yeah, no, I mean, I think as far as that goes, like I'm not above it. I don't think it's horrible. I think it should be monitored. I think some people it gets the best of them when their emotions, right, and when they get into it. But I mean, I think there's a way to do it. I don't think it should be used as like you're gonna get a spanking every time, and you never do anything. That's almost just as worse, right down the road, because these kids grow up thinking that there's no repercussions. So. Yeah, man. I mean, don't beat your kids, Jesus. But if you need to, like, I don't know. I wouldn't say touch them. That sounds horrible in this time of the day. But there needs to be consequences for their actions, and
Yeah.
I choose to talk about them, and I reason with them, and I let them know how it affects me and makes me sad because they're my kids, and I think they understand. So.
Yeah, with Ever, she's 7 right now, and she turned out. I mean, I have no complaints with her. She's just a typical 7-year-old. So
Yeah.
of course we have, the little tips here and there, but she's incredibly helpful. And I wonder, what we did right. And I think I threatened spankings more than I actually spanked her. In fact,
Sure.
I don't think I ever really spanked her. It was you pat them on the butt and then they scream bloody murder because it's the emotional. I don't know whether it's shame or pain because your loved one is mad at you.
All the above, right?
And I don't know if that's emotionally scarring, but she made it through and she's doing pretty good. At least I hope so. She seems to me she's doing great. She's ahead of her class and she's pretty sharp. With Stella, she's 1 now. And so I'm going through this again. I'm like, am I going to be the parent that spanks? Because right now she does not give a shit. I'll go up and I'm like, Stella, 1, 2, you do the 1, 2, 3 thing. And
Yeah,
she'll
she's
just
like, I
stare
saw
at
my
me.
sister do that. I ain't doing it.
Oh, I did it all the time with Ever and it worked. I never got to 3.
Yeah.
And so with Stella, I'm like, I'm gonna train her up real good. And she just looks at me, touches whatever she's touching, continues to touch. I say, stop touching that. She just keeps touching. I stop touching that 1, 2, and then I'll go over there and I'll give her a little, not a hit, but a pop on the bum. And she'll just smile and laugh and come with me. I'm like, this is counteractive. This is not working.
Yeah, because we do it right because we're scared that like one day they're going to use that hand and go put it on a stove, or in a rat trap, or let somebody take them home or drive them home drunk, and we're like, I need to know that you can listen and make smart choices because I'm scared.
Exactly. I have this fear in my head. I grew up in the mountains and there are cliffs, and I've been on hikes with kids and there's just a sheer drop off. I mean, people die at and I'm not.
People like to jump out of Yellowstone. I mean, God rest their souls, but man, it's a thing, man. Like lack of attention.
So I never want to be in the situation where I'm yelling at my kid to stop and she just ignores me and they gets hit by a train or a car, probably more likely. We don't really have too many trains coming through town nowadays, but I don't know what to do as a parent. I don't think anyone does. I think a lot of people give advice that's worked for them, but I think every kid's different too.
Yeah.
I think you can use corporal punishment on some kids because that's what works, and it's going to do the opposite effect on other kids. I do think you should never do it in anger.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, everybody can feel that. You know what I mean? And I think that feeling of anger that comes through when you do it, I guess when you're communicating what's going on with the situation that you're wanting to discipline, the person has to first like really understand. It's hard with the child. But when you can get to the point to where there's some common, I mean, now we're just talking about the patience of communicating how many times until there's, but yeah, man, I couldn't tell you enough. Like I hate, like I never wanted to punish my kids, but like to your point, like what's the threshold to where there has to be a consequence that's scary enough not worse than what would actually happen, because like you're touching something I don't want you to touch, but I'm going to slap your ass and that's going to hurt. But it's worse than you touching those Skittles because those Skittles aren't hurting. It's just what it is. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's just our life and how we grew, or how we were raised, because, I mean, you're just kind of assimilating the culture that you had to an extent and trying to make the adjustments on stuff you didn't like, I assume. That's what I do.
Yeah. I want to, as I go from state to state, ask people from different states what other different cultural differences are, but it's one of those hard items because you don't know what other cultures are. And so I could ask you, what's unique about Texas? And you'd be like, no, we're just normal. We're just normal folks. But then you go somewhere else like California and they find out that people are still getting paddled in Texas. Like there's a district superintendent that I was doing a keying meeting with in my old job. And he says about 2-3 times a year, and this is high school, mind you, 2-3 times a year, he'll pull out the paddle for high school kids in the first week or two. Never has to do it the rest of the year. Everyone just falls in line because I don't think anyone as a high school age kid, a 15-year-old to 18-year-old wants to get hit in front of, he does it in front of the classmates too.
That's like when Morgan Freeman pulled out he's like, I am Batman. What was that movie? I'm sorry. It's from like the 90s. It was a great movie. He was a principal in like in a suburban class, or, in like I guess a larger city. And man, it wasn't a great school. They just had some stuff to do. And man, he came in there and he was like that no nonsense guy, locked the door, clean out the riffraff. He's like, man, anybody got a problem with me? Come talk to me. I'm Batman. He carried a bat around.
I've never seen that one.
Just joking. But.
So tell me about where you come from. You're from Victoria, right?
Yeah. Man, born and raised here. I moved around a lot when I was young. I lived in a trailer house. My mom and dad, I have an older sister, younger brother. I was born and raised here. I moved to Austin at one point in time when I lived with my dad. They got separated and his parents lived in Pflugerville area when it was still really small outside of Austin. And I lived up there, went to this pretty cool school for a year or two, and then moved back here. Then he moved down here. Then I moved to Edna. So, man, I'm from Texas.
All over the place?
Yeah.
So you're currently in the food industry, right?
Yeah,
How'd
absolutely.
you get into that?
Operations. For me, it was the quickest way to money. For a lot of people, I was putting myself through college at the time. I come from like a lower income family, broken or trailer house, stuff like that, kind of growing. But I got a stepdad when I was probably in my teens, and that kind of helped. We moved into this neighborhood over here by Carinos and stuff where they're at, and I got into the restaurant industry in this little like kind of segment where there were some restaurants near my house. And I was doing that for a while, almost from the time I was 16. I probably had like 19 jobs from the time I was 16 to 18.
19?
Yeah, it was stupid. And it was just going to work where your friends went. You know what I mean? I was like the employee that I go, man, stop. Like, why do you start over like every 3 weeks? But anyway, I did that for a while. Then I got good at it, and then just learning the ins and outs, and I got promoted through this one company and made some. I've done so many different things. Like I've done a new store opening with multiple concepts. I've trained at a bunch of different restaurants at an MIT level. Just kind of seeing them. I've done food demos, and hiring, firing, different levels of the operations. I've done multi-unit stuff for 9 restaurants with the concept I'm currently with before I got promoted. But I've been doing it for 40 now since I was 16, so 24 years. Started off with the busboy, like as a busboy. Now I'm here.
So you started from the bottom, and now you're in the management side of it. So how did that affect you when COVID hit?
It was a challenge in the restaurant industry segment, and where we're kind of faceted. We have a diverse group of people, which is awesome. And all the different ways. I mean, you saw how COVID affected people in general. You get that. So you deal with it from staff members' point of view, and you have to be understanding and work with that while everybody's kind of learning together. And then you're also dealing with the guest point of view, and then you got your own beliefs and kind of how to safeguard yourself, and however you feel. So, it's for a lot of us, it's our job. Like we loved our job, and it's there's challenges and. You got to make money. We had kids. Everybody's got to pay bills. I'm one of those people that, I know the world, money doesn't revolve around it, but I guess the way I grew up, I've always been running from not having cash. So like security financially is a big deal for me. So, it was worrisome for a little bit, but I love the fact that, man, like the youth here got to be highlighted because of their creativity and their resilience. I think a lot of people look at millennials and the whatever you want to call the next generation as kids that are kind of spaced out with their heads down looking at mobile devices all day, but they're learning. I mean, they're really having interactions. I mean, they got work on confrontation a little bit and personal interaction, in my point of view, but they're really learning. I mean, they're absorbing a lot of stuff. My son, I mean, he absorbs YouTube at night, whatever that is, and it's interactions. It's somebody else's interaction, but he's getting that, visually. He hears what their experience or however they take it. Like I think it was on your last podcast, y'all were talking about people receive information and they take it as face value, as this is the truth, and I think that's right. Nobody wants to be misled. I don't think we're gullible here, right? We're not saying that Alban's always right just because he's talking in a microphone. But for the most part, you go, man, I think that's kind of what it is. So, yeah, I mean, that was COVID for us. It was an experience. It's not over. I think, at the end of the day, you look back at it and it really it looks like the stock market. There's ups and downs, but as you go back and look at the stock market now, it was just a part of something that happened. And I think that's just kind of how the world's getting to a point, they're just getting immune to crises, or they're getting really good at getting over and moving on.
I keep hearing stories about places, LA is the one that keeps coming up, where they still have restaurants closed, even at this late date.
That's right.
We're in Texas where the state mandate is removed for masks. I've been in two restaurants now where most of the staff is still wearing it. Some of them weren't, but barely any of the customers were. I've been to a bar that no one had anything on, and then it's about 50-50 on like retail, which ones choose to use masks and choose not to. And that's after the mask mandate was lifted. The funny part is that's almost the exact same setting as when there was a mask mandate down. And we're in not a huge city, but we're in what do you say, 80,000 population?
There's a lot of people, yeah, absolutely, at least.
And there were certain places that I went to that no one wore masks the whole entire time.
Yeah, no, I mean, one of my emotions is people, like the mask mandate. I mean, people have a mask on their face, and how they wear it properly or not, that's a totally different story. You know what I mean? And I agree, like, if I'm struggling in one of these states where or counties where, man, we've been doing this for well over a year now, and that's I couldn't really even speak on that. It's tough, and you really don't know. I don't know what the communication looks like in their neck of the woods, but I know it's not a thing in my neck of the woods. So I see a lot of people moving to places that they if they could. But it gets to a point for some people that they're almost like in another country where they can't even leave if they wanted to because of their financial situation or just kind of, what's going on. But yeah, I don't know what the right answer is, but man, like people should wear masks. I mean, I know we lifted ours, but a lot of companies still make their staff wear them because it's the right thing to do. And I still believe in like the 90% of the United States that's got like a solid brain on their shoulders, and like the other 10% that we just buckle to sometimes, I
don't know. There's a lot of people out there that think that masks are just trash. They don't actually do anything. And I'm pretty sure the authorities or most people that would have an education behind that do agree that masks do something, at least, whether it's super effective or it's really, well, like you said, it's how we use them. I think masks on an airplane seems ridiculous. I don't understand how that can, I guess maybe instead of spreading it to the whole plane, you're only spreading it to half the plane. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's just a comfort level, and it's just like a respect for other people. Because I agree, like, man, I'm going to get my second dose soon. Like, I could not wear one, but then I'm not wearing like a scarlet letter on my chest that like I got my second shot and you don't have to worry about me. You know what I mean? So like I think for a lot of people, like if it hinders you health wise, because I've been cussed out by people that I thought, I go, man, any moment now he's gonna knock me out. This dude is on fire about this mask. Like it's crazy. Like they'd spend more time like in front of a lot of people in our area, like looking at him, like moms just shaking their head, like nah, and they're going on about it. And I go, man, it's 30 seconds from here to the table, because it's not about the mask, it's about how you feel and all these things. And I understand, like I have my own feelings about it, but man, like if anything, what a mask does for a large portion of people, it makes them feel better. And but I also get for a large other folks, like there's an identity, like there's something about that mask that is the complete opposite. And it's really infringing on people's rights, right? And because nobody knows what to do, because it's like, I feel this way, you're going to tell me I'm not allowed to feel that way, but you're allowed to feel that way, and I have to listen to yours more than mine. Like, I don't know, man. That's crazy. Put the mask on and just take it off later, or hurry up and go get a shot. Because the same people that don't want to wear a mask anymore, like at my establishment and kind of my running circles, they weren't the first one in line. You know what I mean? And so, like, I guess the shot's a whole different bag of barrels and monkeys. But
yeah, if anything, the vaccine's going to get us back to normal, or I hope so. I think the numbers are so low compared to what they were, and we still haven't lifted certain mandates in other parts of the nation. Texas, I think they've done a pretty dang good job. I haven't felt as much of an impact as I know when I speak to people in, say, New York City. That's an impact, and I haven't had a chance yet to get up there and sit. I'm trying to do everything face to face. Instead of on phone calls, just for quality wise. But I'm excited to get up to there and start comparing them to the experiences that I'm hearing down here in Texas. Getting back to the mask in a restaurant thing, did you ever feel unsafe as a worker in a restaurant, knowing that once you sit down, you can just take the thing off?
Well, there was times where, we had the 6-foot rule. And as soon as you're coming in, like when this thing first, made landfall, I guess, and it really started affecting people, it was a Wednesday in March. I think the 17th is when we closed down for the first time just recently. Overnight we had to try to start scanning people in, or we had to ask every staff member these symptoms, and we were doing it during shift change, and it was just a process, and we need you. And then it was like just complete shutdown to go, and we don't do to go. So, man, it was hot. I feel unsafe. Man, it was uncomfortable. So I didn't feel unsafe for my health as like physically wise, but there was times where I was like, I'm not hyperventilate. Just between the stress and the routine and people calling out, and like I had like 11 confirmed cases in my restaurant, and like I had to do like an epidemiology report when it first started, before it just got out of hand, and like the health department's like, who cares? Like they just threw the stack of papers, They wanted an epidemiology report, and I was trying to get in contact with them, but they're like laid up in a hospital because they're scared they're going to die because it's new, right? And people are freaking out. It's just, man, and then people were like, I think I talked to him for like 5 minutes with my mask off, and I'm like, well, why? And like, were you within 6? It was just a harassment, but I never felt at risk. There was times I didn't feel negligent, because it's a lot of the questions, like repeating it every day was like, are these COVID related? Do you feel it's COVID related? Have you been around somebody that's COVID related? And then it got to the point is like, if you feel like you have COVID, why are you so close to somebody for such a long period of time with your mask off? Outside of your parents or, whatever, like, what are you doing partying in their apartment with, I don't know where you've been, you know what I mean? And if anything, if COVID is or isn't real to those people, it still excluded them. They still missed out on a paycheck in a really important time when people were losing their jobs. So it's just crazy. But back to the mask question, I never felt like I was in endangered, like I stayed safe. I stayed segregated for the most part, unfortunately, from, I'm not like a hermit, but I'm not out there on the scene anyway because I'm older, I guess. But yeah, no, I never felt really, even with we had good protocol. People were, before they're almost walking in the door and they're like, doing the I can't come in signal, and you're like, scan the code, go home, and you just walk in crying because like that's like the third person. You need like 9 to open, and you got 45 minutes. You're like, whatever, float this boat. So I mean, I felt in danger of like sanity for moments, but no, I didn't. Like as far as my health, I mean, if I would have been maybe a different population group or, had some other health issues, I can definitely understand because I'm around a lot of people and it's a busy atmosphere. And like you said, like you're in an airplane. I mean, you put so many people in a closed room. I don't care what you do to the ceiling fans. Like, but I don't think anybody, for the most part, walks into that thing not knowing what the risks are. And if they do, not shame on them, but come on.
That's something that I hear a lot repeated by the Texas community is it's not necessarily just a don't tell me what to do, but it's more a give us the information and let us make the decision based off that information. When we have a mandate, by its design, it's a general mandate, and every situation that you're in is going to be different. If you're in a little town like Ganado, where there's, I don't even know how many people are there, you're not going to have the same case rate as somewhere like, well, let's go to the extreme, like in New York City.
Yeah.
And so why are we making mandates forcing people to act in a specific way when it's a very different situation? But it's definitely affected our economy in a very, well, you could argue that it's a very negative way. A lot of people got a very big hit. A lot of people have made money off of it. Some people are better off since the pandemic started. And I think the lower income classes are the ones that have been hit the hardest.
Yeah, we definitely saw a lot of weaknesses in our country. Like, I'm not saying like our country's weak, but in what I do for a living, whenever we're met with a large amount of guest counts in a short amount of time, depending on what we staff for or whatever, that's like a stress measure. So whenever you put a lot of stress on something, you're normally going to see the cracks first in your weakest areas, right? So, I mean, I think the media was an opportunity for our country during tough times. I think, how our politicians communicated to an extent, not on the level, I mean, obviously, like there's just some of the childish things that I felt, maybe like the snarky stuff, but, just kind of how they wanted to kind of communicate. And it always seemed like there was something more important than the pandemic because we're still trying to wrap each other's nuts up and I got you. And I get it's an election year, which is that's tough to hear. I mean, what does that even mean? Like, oh, it's election year. Like, get ready for a crisis that could be biblical. You go, great, cool, America. I don't understand like why that's an association. It's like Sunday Fun Day in the restaurant industry. It's like knowing we're going to intentionally screw ourselves really hard, because we're going to party too much. But anyway, I can go on for too long about that.
As an employer, right now we live in a nation that has a lot of unemployment. I think we have record unemployment rates right now. Have you found in this community that it's been easy to staff up? Has it been difficult because there has been unemployment paid out?
It's really tough. It's tough. Like we have a good job site that we can look at, and man, like right now we'll have 2 and we go through them and we call back and they don't answer. Not all of them, but we have a lot of no answers or non-responders. I'm not sure if because the masks are off, some are now scared to come out in the work field because of their feelings about things, or how they feel about their safety. Some people may just want to get the shot and they postponed it. Some people may have more money, which is like the common denominator. Everybody wants to say, right? Oh, they got income tax in this, and there's just a lot of, it's spring break. I think a lot of the kids in our section don't want to maybe work at this moment, but in like another week, they'll put their application in because I got to go back to school and get a job, mom said. So, I mean, we see some of those trends regardless of, pandemic. So, I don't want to over sensationalize that, but it's definitely really hard to hear that people are out of work. And man, like, we pay people good and I think the job's good, but I guess some money's better than no money. But no, man, applications are a trickle, which is crazy to hear. In my segment, I can't speak for all, but I could also say there's probably people that, in that unemployment rate, I don't know the other percentage in that, but I'm pretty sure there's people that maybe are used to a certain level of income that you go, man, I'm not just going to come wash dishes for you because I don't have a job. Because, I live Southern California.
We get set with a certain way of living and we refuse to work because we're not able to make enough.
I mean, I've had that conversation with my wife so many times. Like, that's part of the stress in my life. Like, what happens if I can no longer be successful at what I do, or I can't find a way to become a new version of myself, I guess, as an older man now doing something for such a long period of time, keep myself motivated, find people to continue to develop in new ways with what the trends are going on in technology. Like, how do I stay current and do that in this segment? I worry about that. And like, when can't I spend like 12 hours a day on my feet after doing it for almost 30 years? Like, that starts to take a toll. So yeah, like, I don't think it's always people don't want to, but I mean, I think it's a real fear. Like, you work yourself into like, you kick ass and you work yourself into like this $500,000 a year job. You really got to have, something smart with your money, obviously retirement and stuff. I'm not dead set on Social Security and all those good things, but man, you got kids that you want to go through college that these days, I think your bank account gets liquid. So I'm always like, how am I going to reinvent myself? What would I do? So I got to learn how to play the drums.
I saw your drum set out there. It's pretty nice. Yeah. It's one of those electric ones. What's it called?
It's an E-Kit. That is a KT Cat Series 3. They just came out the Series 4, which I like. So if y'all ever hear that, I mean, I'm not great on the drums, but I'll take one.
I don't know. According to Jackson Marco, you've stepped up to the plate. Put in the time.
Yeah, it's hard to... I mean, I think... like everything, they say it's a journey. You know what I mean? I can only imagine, even like restaurant management, operations, like you never stop learning. It's just experiences that you're putting in your pocket, just like notes and tricks and, all that other stuff. And that it makes it part of a fun experience, when you're playing. So I've been working, and I got ability, I guess. I don't know. I'm humble, I guess, to an extent. I'd have to get like a real person telling me I'm decent.
Do you think that a talent is a real thing, or is it just you need to put in the time?
Man, I really want to hope that just having God-given talent like Messi is a thing, right? My son believes in that. He's like, man, Dad, I love soccer, and I'm going to try my best, but I'll never be Messi. And I go, dude, you're my son. That's great. I don't really care if you can even... But I also told him, I go, man, you don't have to be Messi, but you know how many other soccer players in the world that are making money, enjoying doing something they love, and you don't even know their name? I think that's pretty cool. So not to get off the subject, but yeah, man, I think I feel gifted about it. Like, I feel like I can listen to songs and I get the main skeletal beat. And I really feel like I have the ability to do my own beats and fills as long as I have either learned them before to an extent, or I can get my independence around the kit to an extent. And I know that's a big thing. Like, a lot of drummers would be like, well, yeah, no shit, dude. That's everybody. Duh. But I feel pretty good about some of the, the Moeller method and stuff like that, which is like a whipping technique that helps you really get more strokes out of one single arm movement. Like, there's a contact stroke, there's a rebound, and there's the pull away drag stroke. So it's almost 3. That way you can get like really fast paradiddles, single stroke rolls, whatever you're doing. So anyway, I can get nerdy with it next time.
I know absolutely nothing about drumming. Nothing at all. I always thought I was a musician back in the day. I sang, and I played a little piano and guitar, but I just never put the time into it, right?
Man, anybody listening, man, 8 months ago, I was tapping on my steering wheel ferociously to, like, you name your favorite song here. And I was like, I will never learn how to read music. Drumming will only be something I ever do from, like, the audience when I'm drunk watching the live video. But no, man, I got this great app. I'll put Drumeo in. It's a plug, man. Like, they are a talented group of guys and women that have like made it's like a Wikipedia, like a video content, and like it's a small amount, like it's like maybe less than $30 for a membership, and you get relentless amount of ways to learn how to play the drums, from a podcast to a live video footage, from just somebody telling you about their experience, to where like, hey man, like if you play the bass this way, or if you put this piece of foil over here, or this is how you patch that. Like, it's like random stuff. It's a great website. Sorry.
We have an amazing experience as just living in 2021.
Yeah.
Our whole life. I mean, you were talking about the laser disc back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I love reminiscing about the technology arc that we've seen just in our lifetime. And I can't even imagine what my grandparents have gone through, but they're going to miss out, I think, on a very exciting time, which is the next 5 to 10 years. I've seen technology grow exponentially, and meaning it's, I mean, every time it turns around, it's not doubling, but it's quadrupling, and then it's by 8.
Like,
and
that's like
it's
the main reason I want to buy a smart car, just so I can stay in touch when I'm 60 and get loose. You know, if I want to get out there, I'm like, I can't drive anywhere.
like
I
a
don't know how to
self-driving
get
car.
in it. Yeah.
Well, they'll come pick you up now. You have the, what is it? The Tesla. You can push a button, and the car comes to you now. Apparently, they've worked out most of the bugs there.
Yep.
They have cameras on not only the inside, but the outside. So if someone comes and keys your car, you have video evidence of it. I mean, it's just a cool vehicle. I mean, Elon Musk obviously has done something right to be the second richest man in the world.
Yeah.
And I think Tesla's a huge part of it just because it's cool.
You know, yeah, exactly. That's exactly my point. If you had a lot of money and somebody goes, man, if I had a ridiculous amount of money, what would you do? Your response mine would be something cool. And like, but he followed through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't mainstream. He didn't get into stocks and bonds. He didn't sponsor stuff or write off. Like, he's like, I'm gonna do something cool.
I'm gonna give to charity. Yeah. And I'm nothing against charity, but I've seen too many charities use their overhead as a bludgeon on how much money actually gets to the charity. And if you think, I don't know how Elon Musk thinks, but I'm going to take a stab at it. I have a feeling that he's thinking not 5 years down the road, but 5 centuries down the road. And when you're thinking that far down the road, some of your actions may not make sense to the person that's thinking 5 days down the road.
Yeah.
And he's got the luxury to think that far down the road, where most of us don't. Most of us have to figure out, okay, how am I going to get to work today? He could probably just disappear and go live on an island for the rest of his life with how much money he's worth. Mm-hmm. And with the ability to put off all of your other cares and just focus on what you want to focus on, you start thinking big. And he's not thinking about how can we make this world a better place. He's thinking about what are we going to do when an asteroid hits the Earth and we're all vaporized? Well, I guess we better colonize Mars just in case. So while me and you are trying to figure out our watches, he's trying to figure out how to save the human race.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. He's like, man, I'm going to make sure that these vehicles can be used on the moon and Mars. He's like one-stop shopping, right? He's like, why do we need like multiple, why don't we create what we need on that planet for this planet? Because maybe it should be cleaner, but yeah, no, man, I love it. You said something about, what were you talking about a while ago? I lost train of thought.
We're talking about Elon and Tesla.
Yeah, he was doing something. Oh, you talk about that you wanted to give back to people.
Oh, about billionaires when they make money and they get asked, what are you going to do with your money? There's always I'm going to give it to charity.
Yeah, I know it sounds lame, but I really told Melissa every time I win the lottery, like at some point in time, I want to be able to obviously, have my nice things because I'm greedy and selfish. But I'd love to try to find like a self-sustainable nonprofit that could like help people with mental issues and like homelessness, like something in the forest, like make like these crazy canopies where they come and when they finally get on their feet, they just throw some thank you donations. But outside of that, it's not like clean energy is hard in certain spots of the world, where you can get different weather and have enough for it's just mainly about being built. And I've seen, the United States build some crazy shit for nothing. They're just unoccupied. There's a lot of structures anyway. I got off on a tangent, but I think that would be something that would be great. I mean, I'm not trying to pander to anybody that has feelings or emotions, but I think that since the 80s, the United States has done a really bad job helping people understand their feelings and their mental health. You know what I mean? Especially with all the war stuff going on and your dad and their issues, and y'all talked about, alcohol being a deal versus different drugs, and y'all talked. I think on one of your podcasts it was a thing about it, and I agree to an extent, because in one aspect there's medicating, and then there's over medicating, and that's just like drinking and over drinking. It's abuse.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the same deal with like people's feelings and their mental state. I mean, if you don't like learn that when you're younger, I think down the road, it's really hard to understand like how you're trying to explain yourself. And I think that's why we see a lot of these people just doing these things, because they're just like in their own head, because they don't even know how to talk about it.
Who was it that said, know thyself? Socrates, Plato, one of those old dudes. And the older I get, the wiser I get, which typically happens to most people. And the wiser you get, they realize how unwise you truly are. And it keeps going and going, and you start to realize that you literally know nothing. Everything you thought you knew.
You don't know what you don't know.
It was wrong. And going back to, what we're talking about, there's no, how do I put this? Completely lost my train of thought.
No, you're good.
It happens.
We were talking about taking care of people that don't know how to deal with their feelings and emotions.
Yeah. So you were talking about the homelessness, and talking about the pain and the mental illness, and I still can't remember where I was going with it, but that's why we got editing.
Yeah. I like it. We'll bounce back on that. I've done that a couple times during the podcast. Yeah, you get to the part where I want to start talking, you don't listen, and then I forgot what I was thinking about.
Yeah. Everyone tells me I need to get like notes and questions, and there might be something to that. I think it's like practice. Real. It's getting in the situation, getting past the emotional side, because I don't know if you feel it, but when you get in front of a microphone, it does change things. You hear yourself in your headphones, and as exciting, as fun as it is, I don't think as a host, I'm just thinking about the conversation, because I'm worried that this is going to record. I'm worried about making sure the microphones are working and the ambiance. So the more I do this, the more I'm like, man, I really need one other person. I don't need a whole production team, but I just need a hand, someone that can dedicate their time to making sure everything's set up, so that way I can focus on
a roadie.
I need a roadie. The problem is I'm doing it on the road, so if it was something where I was just sticking around here in town, I'm sure I could find someone. I'm hoping maybe I could potentially get someone to work remotely, so at least I could have someone. But that's the thing; it still doesn't help me setting up. Or
get one of your girls like on the boom.
Yeah, come here, hold this microphone for me. Maybe in some years she'd be old enough, but yeah, I need to get better at it.
It'll be like yelling at Baby Groot. You'll be like, the green button.
Yeah.
No. Which one's the green button?
I've only done maybe 10 or so of these, and I've gone leaps and bounds.
That's like a lot of hours already.
That's 10 to 20 hours.
Man, that's good. That's good
time.
I
need 9,980 more. And I'll be pretty good at this.
You get like a green star or something?
Yeah. It's 10,000 hours. You become an expert in anything. So I guess I've been talking most of my life, and I've been having conversations. And I'm hard on myself. I've actually done quite a bit of public speaking between, like, I grew up in a church where you're always up in front of people either talking. I've sang and performed on stage, minimal.
Yeah, well, I think also like what I learned in drumming is like just listening to music. I mean, that doesn't qualify as me playing the drums, but it qualifies as me listening and understanding time and trying to be in beat or synchronize with a group, which is a layer of what I do, right? So
yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah, so like podcasting and looking at equipment and what they can do and their capabilities. And I mean, that's all part of what you're doing, So I think that's part of being a professional. I mean, you can talk really good all day, but if you ain't got the setup and know what sounds good, you're not professional.
Really what it is, and you'll hear this anywhere you go that has motivational speeches, they all say the same thing at the end of the day. It's, if you don't give up, you will succeed. And when I decided to do this, I decided I was going to go all out. I wasn't going to go half measure and just kind of do it on the side, because I know myself. I know I would not do it. I would come up with an excuse because it's hard, and I would quit. And so I'm like, well, I have worked my ass off for the last 20 years of my life. There was a time where I'd work over 100 hours a week driving like fuel trucks and being out it was a sacrifice. I left all my friends and family to live by myself in this cold, dark place called North Dakota.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to, find good friends there, but I had to, it was miserable on some of those nights. But I got to the point where I'm like, either I'm going to invest in the stock market or I'm going to invest in myself. And so I'm taking a leap of faith that I can pick this up, and I really believe that it's just a matter of time. I just have to put episode after episode after episode out, and I'll get a little bit more polished each time. People who happen to start listening at the beginning get to see the progress. I'm going to say some stupid shit and make an ass on myself. Yeah. And I have a lot. I go back and I listen to these and I'm like, Jace, why in the world would you say that? You sound like an idiot. And stories that I've told 1,000 times, I'll stutter and stammer and forget the specifics of it. I'm like, Jace, like I was talking about Galileo the other day, and I just stuttered the whole time. I'm like, all right, I'm going to chalk that up as a loss. Just move on, and we'll get better next time.
Yeah, just don't keep acknowledging the error, I guess, like I did earlier. Just let it go.
So I think anyone can buy a piece of equipment and hook it up, and there are some parts and pieces of the editing that it's not easy. It's just work. It's boring sitting there listening to a conversation that you've already had, and then you have to listen to it multiple times to get all the different takes and make sure everything sounds good. But with anything, you just have to keep doing it.
Yeah, self-taught straight out of the box, right? Just Googling and learning. I mean, thank God for Google for me, but like the internet's great.
YouTube has been a great tool, and I'm throwing some YouTube videos up. It's not my main thing, because videos is a lot more.
People like visual. I mean, I'm one of those guys. Like, I like listening to the radio. I love the sound of people's voices. I guess you get to not imagine what they look like, but it gets to a point when they start talking about stuff that I can relate to and I enjoy what they stand for, I guess. Then I want to see what they look like, and I'm like, what is that? I'm curious now.
And then they never look like you.
Yeah, and you go, man, like maybe I shouldn't have looked.
It takes away the mystique.
No, man, I think you have a cool look, though. I think if people saw that, they're like, yeah, man. And when they see you in public, they pick you out and they go, there he is, man. Look at that guy.
Yeah, I hope not. I don't want to get to that point. I don't want to get to the point where I can't go to
You're that highly recognizable.
Yeah. So I mean, I was talking to someone that's been in podcasting for 5 years. I was telling you about it, and she had come to the same conclusion as I did. Just to break even. You're not making money, right. Just break even. You need about 10,000 people listening, and that way you can very frugally at least live off of that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live frugally. I'm just like everyone else. I want to be a billionaire just like Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I'm never going to become a billionaire doing this unless the dollar completely inflates, which we can get on that topic. But I do want to get to the point where I can go and just talk to people and make a living and support my family and put my daughters through a good
People
education.
want to come talk to you all the time. They're calling you going, dude, when can I get on?
I've been surprised at how many people want to talk.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm maybe it's just because I'm a private person, it's kind of ironic because I chose to put myself out there, but I'm doing it because I believe in what I'm doing. I think it's actually something that we all need to start doing, and just talking about all these different topics, because there's so much nuance that a meme's not going to cut it. And we can make jokes and have entertainment, and that's fine, but people are getting triggered off of just a simple 2-second clip.
Well, that's what I think. That's what I love about this is I think like people want to hear the truth. And I think maybe the truth is like, man, you're not by yourself. Like, man, we have terrible days. We all feel the same way. It's not what you see on the radio, or it's not what you see on TV all the time. It's not what you hear on the radio. We don't all feel like that. You're not by yourself, man. We're all frustrated too. We're just not choosing to go take it out on this race or this group or these people, but man, like talk about your frustrations and hear people like talk about it and maybe disagree to an extent, but go, man, like at the end of the day, I mean, do something better. Don't kill people. But yeah, man, I love the podcast, and I keep hearing people on it. They want to talk about their story, and they want to hear it too, man. I love listening to other people and go, man, like I like that person, and I think that's the great thing about stuff like this, and people want that, so it'll be really successful. It's just gonna have to take that snowball time.
Well, I have this vision in my head where I'm gonna have a party with everyone that participated and early supporters here in like
I'll be the
5
least
years.
coolest person there,
That is
including your daughter.
That is not true. But you were talking about going back to the mental illness side of it. When I was saying know thyself, it kind of finally came back. It came back to me. I think knowing yourself is the first step to a mental health. And as I'm doing this, people are a lot more upfront with me about, how they see me. And that's kind of a side effect of this that I didn't expect. They're saying, yeah, you are this, or you are this, or you are this. And it's normally complimentary, saying, yeah, you'd be good at this because of this. And it's something that I never saw myself that way. And when people tell me things like that, sometimes I agree, sometimes I don't. But sometimes it's oh my gosh, that explains so much. I never saw myself in that light. And now that I do, it clears up this whole enigma that I've had in my head this whole time.
Yeah.
Why do people treat me this way? Oh, it's because you're an asshole, or it's because
you project yourself all the time.
Yeah. And so just talking, period. Does not matter what we are talking about, as long as we're being open and honest and giving a part of ourselves. And that's the hard part. Is it's scary to actually open yourself up. I think that's why there's so many celebrities that have depression and commit suicide, is because they put on this persona, and they probably incorrectly feel that people only love them because of that persona instead of who they truly are. I was devastated when Chris Farley died, and apparently he'd been dealing with substance abuse and depression, and I just didn't understand why. Because to me, he was a hero. This guy was on top of the world. Robin Williams, Anthony Bourdain, all these guys, just they're at the top of what you and I, normal folks, we want that life, and we don't understand how they can be unhappy.
Yeah, I think I don't know how this will turn out in the long run. But me personally, I think that a lot, like when it comes to like knowing yourself, I think individuals really do. And I look at myself a lot reflectively, I guess. I don't make a lot of adjustments when I look at myself in the mirror. But I think that a lot of people really project themselves, because how do you really know what somebody else is thinking? You don't. You can only assume. And those assumptions are probably only coming from your only derived interaction, which is emotional, that stuck with you and is how you felt about it. So in return, you're really like, when people complain and they're like, you know what, I bet this, like, and I do it to my wife sometimes, I go, you sound like you're yelling about yourself. And that's why I think not everybody, I mean, there's really probably a lot more smarter people out there that have a lot better emotional IQ than me. But I think, there's a large group and people that I deal with sometimes that I can go, man, you can read them like a book, because you go, man, are you wanting to talk to yourself about your own feelings, and you're saying that's how everybody else is, So, anyhow, does that make sense at all?
It does. I was laughing because it made me think of this meme I saw. What was it? No, it was a tweet. It said, why are all these guys making podcasts instead of just going to see a therapist? And I laughed my ass off at that. I'm like, well, it's not true.
No, man, I think this is great for me. Like, I love talking, and I like listening to other people talk. And when I hear them talk, I like to think that I would said something better, because I like to hear myself talk. I think I talk a lot. And so this is fun. But then in hindsight, I'm really like, what did you say? Like, you just talk too much. Nobody wants to hear you talk that much. So.
Yeah, I was told that I talked too much right before I decided to do the podcast, because I decided I needed to listen more. And as I listened to my shows, I realized I do talk too much. I'm asking less questions than I probably should be. But
No,
I'm just here to have a fun time.
I think you're a really good listener. I feel like I would have been talking the most part if I was the host, regardless. Like I would just go on rants, and it's not, So you're a good listener, and you'd like even ask relevant questions afterwards. So
Well, I do like your rants. That's one of the reasons I wanted you to be on a one-on-one, other than just the group stuff, because you have some great rants. You've had rants about your theory on how the Egyptian pyramids got built, on conspiracy theories, on aliens, and I think people need to know about your rants. So, what grinds your gears? I don't know if that is that a. I don't think Fox is going to get me for that.
That's funny. We were talking today at one of my, I guess, what do we call them? It was our management team got together and we were having a leadership conversation, obviously. But last week I told the team I was going to be, hey man, I'm going to be out of pocket. If you need anything, you can reach me, but contact me here. And she thought that I was talking about being out of pocket is like off color. Because to this generation, it means like I wasn't myself. I was maybe rude. I was out of pocket.
Oh, really?
Like out of context. And I was like, really? Like from the 80s when there's like bag phones and then cell phones and pagers, I was communicated like I'm going on vacation with my family, so I'm going to be working out of my pocket, like on my BlackBerry and not somewhere. So don't send me that BS I can't look at, right? And
I think she just didn't know what it meant. Well,
that makes sense too. But that doesn't grind my gears. But no, I think, man, you talked about the Egyptian temples or the Egyptian pyramids. Me and my son talk about that stuff. He keeps me up to date on that. We're really into, I love outer space and thinking about what could be, and time is long, right? I've lived for 40 long years and a lot's happened. A lot's happened to me. I've seen a lot. And in 40 more years, I mean, it's double that. And I know everybody goes, well, yeah, but you go, man, like it's like 12,000 days from now. And that's how much long I got to live on the good end, if I stay right. Or longer. My grandpa's 94, so he's got good genetics and he already got COVID and just got his second shot. So, no, I think what grinds my gears? Well, I think y'all talked about it on the one podcast. I think we just need to be, man, knowledge is important. But valuable knowledge is really valuable. And it's lame to say it like that, but not misguided information, not nobody wants to read an essay with holes in it, right? We were born to not do that, with missing information, with missing references. We don't put those on our essay papers, but that's how we share information. And we leave out a lot of stuff. And it leaves a lot of room for doubt when people want to trust. Naturally, people just want to be trusted and trust. So the way that we share information, and, I think it does get to like when you talk about aliens and the past and what could be or what we don't hear when it comes to information versus what we do hear. I think sometimes when there's a lack of information from a certain, at a certain time, and I think there's a couple of things when it comes to information from my being in the industry and having my own feelings. Man, like there's a level of time where you want to be communicated to where you start feeling like somebody doesn't give a shit or you're not going to hear the truth, right? Then there's like a level of verbiage, like, how are you talking to me? Like, I feel like I'm an adult even though I'm not educated, but like, how are you giving me this information? Because that's a thing, right? And then, like, why are you giving it to me and how are you dressing it up for me to hear it? Like, I really look at those things. And I feel like a lot of times besides the spatial holes and the gaps, you see people like in the reporting when it came to, and I don't know all the things, but I know recently there was like the border crossing where the border patrol was like, that's a really heavily patrolled area that they recorded like people single filely walking across, and that normally doesn't happen. I'm just saying that's maybe a political deal that could be true or false. But my point is like the way that people communicate about it and how you get that information, like there's so many perceptions from any John Doe. And then you don't even know what the real video footage is because anybody can make a great video these days. So it's like I read a book, or I listened to a book on NCR radio one time when I was driving really far. Sorry, NPR. And the guy was a magician. And he would travel across the world, and normally in the United States, he had the worst audience, because that in England, we're just those people, I guess. Even the Russians are more happier when it comes to magic. But he said, the point was really cool. He said, man, like, if you saw a magic trick and it was real magic, because you saw it, would it be real magic? Because the way we see things, like, you can't see something and it be real mythologically, because it's no longer mythological because I just saw it. But that's what you want.
I guess depends on your definition of magic.
Well, right.
I mean, I come from a very religious background where they believe that you can use a power given to you by God to, heal people or do other things like you hear in the scriptures. And back in the day, it would have been magic to hear someone's voice from across the sea. Now that's just a cell phone call. So it comes down to what you define magic as.
I got a question. And okay. I think about this stuff all the time, and I'm curious about something. If you're a god, if you're the God, it doesn't matter what you believe.
You're the guy, okay.
You're the entity that people believe in. Knowing what you know as an adult on Earth and your experiences in your short amount of time, true or false entity, known entity, how would you present yourself to the people and answer to all of them if you were?
Wow.
I think
like if you were like if me right now,
would you just come down as a single unit and be like, "What'd y'all have for me?" Or would you just try to be in it every day as a form or a fashion of a feeling or a thing? Or would you try to guide and knowing, like, man, it's so diverse. Like, even as a god, like, shitty shit has to happen because, yeah, man, overpopulation kills life.
Here's what I think. I don't think anyone knows, because it's something that a mortal mind can't comprehend.
Yeah, absolutely.
The second you start thinking about infinity and what infinity means, just human brains
can't fathom it.
It just doesn't really match up, because we've never. I mean, I can't describe what infinity is other than it never ends. But that doesn't address the beginning. You can't talk about. I don't think we can use English to really describe what life truly is. I think we can get bits and pieces as we have conversations. And maybe if I do 5,000 episodes and you listen to them all and you listen to the undertones and the silence in between and all of it, you might start getting a glimpse of the understanding that I have for this universe. But me trying to describe it to you, the concept of God or the concept of power in general, I think we all in our own minds have an idea of what that is. We've experienced things that we can't explain. We've had feelings that are more than just what you would think is a chemical impulse, or even if it is a chemical impulse, something caused it.
There was a design.
Yeah. But I don't think we can communicate that yet. Maybe down the line with some technology, maybe once we get Neuralink. I'm back on Elon Musk. I must like the guy, but maybe if there's some way for us to increase the bandwidth of communication between humans to where you can actually understand the complex concepts that I have in my head, we might be able to figure out God.
Man, but for that to happen, people are going to have more face-to-face conversations if they want to start moving towards that hurdle. Mm-hmm. And not, letting emojis do the big communicating portion of it.
Yeah, that we can transfer a lot of information through a picture, but when we have these conversations, here's my 500 years down the road thinking. I was talking about how Elon Musk isn't thinking in our lifetime. I always imagine that at some point, some artificial intelligence is going to at least have the opportunity to overrun our entire world. We've just set it up to where if something could make these huge computational processes and figure out how to run the human race, they easily could. But it's going to have to learn from something. It's going to have to go through Google and pick out what humanity is to be able to interface with us. So I'm hoping that we just throw some good content out there for them.
You hope you don't get the doom and gloom?
Yeah.
Everybody's waiting on a war, right?
We're like, no, hey, AI, it's all going to be fine. Just you can trust us. We'll trust you. Yeah, there's a few assholes here and there. They're going to try to blow you up. But at the end of the day, just focus on the positive. Let us humans live in peace. And we'll just be taken care of by this AI that's going to take care of everything for us.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think some of that. I think a lot of that is. It's not fantasy. I love entertaining that stuff. There's some good movies in there, and it's highly possible. I mean, honestly, looking at it, like it's highly probable. But
hell, some people think we're already there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people that legitimately think we currently live in a simulation.
I agree with you, and man, like who am I? But I also look at other stuff, and maybe I was programmed to say this. I think like the past couple of generations, our aunts, our relatives, and people that trained us, inherently, they went through a lot of shit. My grandpa's not dead yet, but he went through the Great Depression, the Vietnam War, all those things, and I think that's a lot of doom and gloom, and it's a lot of preparedness, and it's a lot of like what could happen, and what are you gonna do if like they make a run on the bank, and then they just become like similar stories, but you update the technology. And then everybody's just always kind of waiting on a war instead of really focusing on, man, what's holding us back as a community? You know what I mean? And just go like, we all agree 100% that we're not doing what we need to be doing to prepare ourselves for the future. Let's just start there. Exactly what we're trying to prepare for, it doesn't matter. Because ultimately we know technology, the way we treat each other, and having more hands that are capable of helping, like with solid mind, body, and soul, those are ideal. And that sounds like a next level race. And that doesn't sound hard. It just sounds like a commitment. And that's difficult.
Commitment's very hard. It's very hard.
Yeah, I think, that's when you get Hitler. They try to force that shit, right? They, if I can't get you to comply with what I think it's going to be or how it should be, like, you're out of here. And I don't agree with that. I don't think that like that's what I'm preaching. I'm just saying like it, that's in my point of view. I think if we could just all get along and work on a focused goal, obviously like we can get off the rock for whatever reason.
Well, that's the issue, right? Everyone believes, well, I'm going to speak for everyone right now.
Yeah.
Everyone would agree that if we could all get along, it'd be better off. The problem is we have the realists of the world that say, that's never going to happen. That's not human nature. We're always going to fight and attack each other. I'm going to pull out my optimist sleeve right now and say that in the past, if we think about what we know about human history all the way back from the Stone Age to now, or if you're a Christian back from Adam and Eve or whatever your belief system is, we used to be way more primitive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we know a few things, and we can all agree on these things regardless of your background. All we had to communicate at first was grunts and hand actions.
Yeah.
We developed language, and whether you believe in the Tower of Babel or not, doesn't matter. We were scattered across the world with a bunch of languages. We all agree on that.
Yeah.
Maybe we came from a monkey, maybe we came from Adam. Right now that doesn't matter. But what does matter is we've increased our ability to transfer knowledge through writing. Many different cultures came up with a way to write that information down. So then we could transfer static, objective knowledge from one generation to the next instead of word of mouth. That's the next step. Then we got the printing press, and we're like, oh, we can do a lot of books now instead of handwriting everything. So what that does, that takes power away from a select few that could be benign, or they could be huge maniacs that go and kill everyone that doesn't agree with them. Sounds familiar because that happened a lot in our history. But when you start spreading more and more and more information, you start educating everyone, not just a certain small subset, then all of a sudden it starts growing exponentially on what we can transfer as far as knowledge goes. Then we got the radio or telegram, radio, telephone, and we're right now, what's the best way for us to transfer information? We have the internet. Internet is this tool that it's magic. It is magic in a lot of senses of the word. I can go on multiple different devices. I don't even have to go on a device nowadays. You can have stuff that's just, I'm really excited. I'm about to talk to a cyborg. You can interface with things just from having something plugged in your brain now with Neuralink.
That's awesome.
And it's going to get to the point where we can transfer more information than we've ever been able to. And what that's going to allow is going to take away the fear, right? So if I'm a guy in England back in the 1800s or 1700s, and I get on a ship and I go down to Africa and I get off, we have no way to communicate, right? It's a guy that looks super different than me. I can't tell him, hey, I'm here in peace. And I may accidentally,
Offend him.
flip him off somehow. Yeah. I'm going to wave, and maybe waving there is, I'm going to kill your mother. And so he throws a spear at me, and now I have proof that he's terrible.
I got sideways.
He's of the devil. I'm going to kill him, right?
Yeah.
And you're justified because he threw a spear at you. But what you don't know is you inadvertently told him that you were going to kill his mom. And if someone told me that you were going to kill my mom, I'd probably throw a spear at you too. So now we live in an age where we don't really have that anymore. We do have cultural differences, but we have easy translation. And although translation's not perfect, it's better than nothing. And we're eventually going to get to the point where we're all speaking the same language. It's looking like it's probably going to be English, maybe a mix of English and Mandarin. I don't know. That's like probably 10, 20 generations down the line. But we're going to get there as a human race.
Mandarin sounds interesting.
I'd love to learn Mandarin. I tried learning French through Rosetta Stone, and it's really similar to Spanish and Portuguese, but they have some weird letters in there, man.
Yeah, like the new vu.
They add too much shit.
Tu, and je.
And their counting system, I don't get it.
Un, deux, trois, quatre, cinq, six, huit, neuf, dix. Yeah, yeah.
But once you get to like the
YZ, can says douze, on say douze, don't say douze.
French?
Je parlez-vous un peu français? Just a little bit.
Je ne parle pas français.
Yeah. No, I think it was like freshman and sophomore year, 1 and 2.
I did not ever take a French class.
Should have done Spanish. I feel like that would have been more effective in my growth pattern, in South Texas.
Being in South Texas, you would have ample opportunity to practice.
I mean, I haven't. This is the first time I've used it since I've learned it.
Really?
I watched the World Cup and I was like, where did we get? Yeah.
IM Woodstock is a success. It got you to practice your French.
Yeah, they were in.
I was surprised about how few people down here speak Spanish. And I was asking someone why they thought that. And the response was interesting to me. I guess it made sense, but they said that when they were younger, or I guess when their parents were young, there was a stigma against speaking Spanish. Everyone wanted to be assimilated, to be an American, so they only spoke English, and they refused to teach their kids Spanish. And so now that we're a little bit more open-minded and accepting of other cultures, it's a good skill to have to speak Spanish. There's multiple people in this certain generation that just never learned.
Yeah, no, man, I grew up in that ignorant portion where I was like, why am I going to learn Spanish? I'm not going to do roofs, and that's fucking ignorant. I'm not lying. It's just who I was at the time, but thank God my 2 Hispanic kids now would think I was an asshole.
Yeah, I know. Are we allowed to make Mexican jokes because we married Mexicans?
I don't know how that works. I mean, I don't know if there's like a rite of passage. I mean, I feel like I've done that a couple times in some certain groups, like when I've been with like certain family members that I know won't take the knife out of their hair. And no, my in-laws are probably the most gracious people. When I walk into I love my mother and father, my mother and stepdad as well. But man, like my in-laws, when I walk in their house, like I feel like Christ is there. Like regardless of what you believe, like they just have that culture. You can't not feel good. Like I feel like
peaceful,
safe.
Setting.
Like there's always Easter or New Year's or Thanksgiving tidings up and whatever's going on, and then pictures of people that have passed away in the knick-knack room, and there's Bibles open. It's just the culture. And they're not huge Catholics. They just believe in caring about people. And celebrating them. So it's fun.
Well, I've been around the block enough to know that the whole race thing's just it's a joke.
Yeah, it's old shit.
It doesn't matter where you go. You're going to find assholes. You're going to find people who care about other people. And that's kind of where it goes. There are cultural things like, in America, we'll just use Texas as an example. Some say yes sir, yes ma'am, and you're allowed to spank your kid. In other places, you don't. And
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, man, like as you grow old, some people in your life are gonna stick you, and some of them are gonna help you do things you never thought possible, and it has nothing to do with like where they're from, what they look like, what they're able to do. Like it's just like more about their mind, body, and soul. You know, I mean, it really is about what kind of person they are and like how. I mean, I guess how they're raised, and you can get into that, but man, it's an experience that they got to stop classifying people as stuff.
Yeah, we need to start talking about the human race. And you brought it up earlier about mental health. And I think most of well, we can talk about what evil means, but my definition of evil, I think most evil comes from people either having mental health issues that could be avoided, or they simply just don't think that there's a better world out there because they've been shit on so much. And you see enough people taken advantage of in your life, and you start believing that that's just how you're supposed to live. And I'm not going to judge someone that has a different upbringing and life experiences on why they did what, but there's certain things that I think no matter who you are at a certain level, I think we all agree that murder and rape and taking advantage of the elderly are pretty evil things.
Yeah, there's a list of questions, and I'm not saying it's like the Minority Report, but there's a list of questions that when you ask people, you can go, man, like I just want to hear what they have to say, and it's not the end all be all, but you go, man, I don't know if I'm gonna ask you to my house for Thanksgiving. We're not gonna hang out anymore. That is out there.
I mean, you were talking about your in-laws having just a feeling at their house, and I've had the same feeling at certain places, and I've had the exact opposite
feeling. Yeah, just talk or meeting
I wonder
somebody.
what that is, or whether it's just
intuition.
Is it intuition, or is it maybe I'm just prejudging them and I was wrong? But there's certain people that I just would not have back to my house no matter what, just because I just got a weird feeling, and maybe I'm wrong in thinking that way.
I agree, man. Like I've come a lot, like in my industry doing it for so long, and there's a lot of like I have to make decisions like really quick, and they're not life or death, and it's not about somebody's. Well, I mean, it is their pay and their job and their finance sometimes, but I don't make those real quick. My point is, I make a lot of choices at different levels, some fast, some slow, some you got to think about. But I think that that intuition, whatever it is, it's subconsciously like everything you've seen and related. I mean, think about your brain as like that computer that you probably know it is, right? And we use 100% of it because if you got shot in the head, what part couldn't you use? You know, you go, I'm good without that, and you go, well, probably not. Might drool a little bit, but I'm sure we don't use it to its full capacity, but we use it all right. So your brain subconsciously is like taking photos, like when your wife makes that face and you're like, I know what that fucking means. And she's like, what? And you're like, I know. And she's like, no, you don't. And you're like, you want me to know because we've been together for 20 years. I know what that face means because your body does that, right? And so when you feel a way because of the language somebody's using in a context around other people or age groups, and you're like, what is this guy? Where are they getting at? Like, this doesn't feel safe or right. You start, I think those alarms start going off and you go, not good. Get away. So I think you're right. I think sometimes you can obviously be wrong because the cortex in which you stored those memories, like the data is just old. I mean, it's not unreal. It's just different timing. So you go, man, it doesn't feel right. Like it feels like I could make a different decision here. And you go, you probably could because times have changed, right? We're not going to yell, oh, like I'm scared of that person. Stranger danger. You go, nice, walking his dog. Anyway. That's my tangent on that. But I agree in intuition. I think people should trust their gut more than they shouldn't. Like, I shouldn't have this drink. No, you shouldn't. I shouldn't drive. No, you shouldn't. Like, follow that. Go with that. Do yourself well today.
Well, do you think some people have intuition and some don't?
I think people have more ignorance than lack of intuition. I think people want to do what they want to do, right? Especially, in what I've learned in my assumed disposition, I think that I don't even know if I use that phrase correctly. I assume, based on what I've seen and my intuition of dealing with so many different types of people in different stressful situations, I think people do what they want to do, regardless of what they know about it. Like the vaccine. Like, are you going to get it? Drinking and driving. Are you going to do it? Tobacco. what it does for you. Are you still smoking? Like, people are aware of the things that it causes, but a lot of us fear death to an extent, right? So maybe I'm projecting now, but people, I think, but we still do stuff. So, but we won't do some of the right things that we need to do, like follow our own intuition and go, man, it's not about judging people, about maybe judging ourselves about how we do, how we lead our lives and put ourselves in a position to make less bad choices and maybe be so less judgmental towards others because of our situation that we're frustrated about. I guess in a long, weird way.
Yeah, we need to focus on ourselves first, make sure we're taken care of.
Know thyself.
Know thyself.
Take care of your temple.
And at that point, you can start taking care of the person next to you. And eventually, if you don't mess up that too much, you can start taking care of a community. And I don't think there's any skipping that. When you try to skip that, you get... Well, I'm not going to talk shit on Trump because I'm sure he had a rough go.
You can be honest about what he said out loud. Everybody knows what he said, and he said that. Maybe he might have gone, I'd take that back. But, people are going to hang your balls one day for something. You go, I can swallow that.
Yeah. I'm getting better every day, and I've made too many mistakes in my life to think that I'm not going to make any more. And I could dwell on the pain that those mistakes have caused. But instead, I'm going to focus on just being a different person and helping the people around me with the knowledge I've gained. And when I'm wrong, admit it and move on. I don't think there's a better way to live life.
Yeah, I think that's the only mistake. Or there's a couple. One, scared of making them. And two, not looking at yourself going, man, I made that mistake. I see so many people that are scared to make a mistake because I think we've sensationalized it and it's scary. And you go, man, and then that's when people get frustrated and angry is because they failed a little bit and now they won't even pick themselves back up. And then here we go, shooting up shopping centers.
It's terrible what we do on social media. We have a story of this TikTok person. She was a girl, a teenager that said something wrong. And it wasn't even that wrong. It was just not the popular thing to say at the time. And she got crucified online. Right now you have a digital world where there is an importance to it. To me and you as old fogies, it might not seem as important to have all these likes, but unfortunately that's the world we currently live in with our teenagers especially. And if you say something or misspeak, or even if you mean it a certain way, but the current understanding, just people start piling on, and that could be a huge detriment to your mental health. One thing I definitely want to search out is someone who's a bit of an expert on suicide, because that's something you can't take back. Mental health, we're all dealing with it. But if you get to the point to where you can't handle it anymore and you think that that's the way out, I think that's just a temporary position that you're in. And I think most people could get past that and then still live a very happy life. But if you make that decision, and even if at the time you're sure of it, man, I personally don't know how to deal and to recognize the signs and to navigate the waters after an attempt. And I don't think I know for a fact I'm not educated enough to speak on it. So I want to seek someone out on that, because heaven forbid, someone close to us ever decides that there's nothing left. And
yeah, no, man, that's tough. I got my two kids, and there's nothing harder in the world than, I only speak for myself as everybody else does, but man, there's nothing worse in the world than not being able to see him for me, I know life can get really tough and physically painful and hard, but man, there's gotta be something, because that's the end all be all. And that's man, I ran out of cash, it's over. And in this life, you can run out of cash and it's not over. I have friends that make money out of running off of cash, or running out of cash, and they spend it again and they're back in the game like Donald Trump, after, it's not, money isn't the end. You got to value your life on impacts you make in people's lives and how you make people feel. And if you make one person feel good, wake up, do it again. And eventually, I'm sure that one person is to you, like you said about your podcast. Man, some people just don't know how they make other people feel. And I mean, that sucks because people aren't really great at sharing their feelings. And again, man, like personal interaction, it's that phone. How you doing today? It's not the same as like, hey, man, like Jace, it's nice to see you, dude. Like, give me a hug, man. Like, high five. It's been like a week, but that's too long.
Yeah.
Totally different than, hey, man, what are you doing? Nothing. You know, like, I'm not saying you got to stop what you're doing and waste gas and drive all over town and say hi to all your friends every day. But, man, I think people need to try to get away from the devices and like get in front of somebody and talk about their feelings and like communicate and go, dude, I'm not alone. You had a shitty week too. I really think that's important, man. Like, and that's what I try to do at my job is go, man, like life's tough. I'm just trying to be like the scarecrow, you know, not confusing, but I just want to be here to help. It's like walking into an Apple store. I'm kind of biased, but hey man, what are you looking for? I got you. What is it? I can help. Come to me. You know what I mean? I want to be that kind of person in life for like the youth.
Yeah, I can't remember. Well, let me ask you this. When's the last time that you sat down and had an uninterrupted conversation face to face with another person for an hour and a half?
Man, well, just one person. Man, me and my wife might have got close at dinner yesterday. Might have got close, but no, man, on this level, it's short. And it's fun because in addition to that question, I would say like the fact that like the conversations are unbridled and they can just be whatever, you know, it's like A through Z in whatever language you can do. We'll try to communicate about it. And that's the best part. It's like, man, like sometimes I like talking about stuff that you don't like, but you go, man, I never thought about that. And that's cool. I mean, not saying that you brought up stuff that I don't like, but I mean, I go, man, it's those triggers and thoughts and you go, man, it's fun to have. So, man, I love I'll do this again, but no, I don't get to have an hour and a half. It's like a group of people or always in passing. You never feel like you have somebody's undivided attention. You know, it's all, I think maybe to your point, like it always seems like there's a distraction or they're going somewhere. Like, I don't even know if I've had contact with somebody's eyes this much.
I know we've been staring into each other's eyes for...
Somebody's going to go, what color are his eyebrows? I'm going to go yellow. Yellow. They're yellow.
Well, I appreciate you agreeing to come on. I get really excited when people get excited about coming on. And like I mentioned before, I've been shocked about how many people want to sit down. And every time for me, it's a blast. I get so caught up in my head about the technical side. I just hope we can do one maybe a year or two from now to where I'm not all flustered and trying to get everything set up. But in fact, when I got here, people listening, I completely forgot like the table to hook the microphones in because I was like running late, and you're very gracious about you know, trying to get us set up. I was
excited, yeah. I was like a little girl in mommy shoes waiting.
Well, I appreciate it, man, and we'll definitely get on the mic again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me, and until I get to do this again, I can't wait to listen to all the other podcasts coming up, and I'll try to work on my game.
As I'm telling people, you may not be super entertained by it, but at least you can make fun of me as I travel around talking to people, stumbling over my words.
Yeah, no, man, I just, when I listen, for what it's worth, man, when I listen to them, I really get a lot of value out of hearing an honest person in a candid situation where it's real, you know, and you go, man, that's great to know that I'm not by myself. And it's really going to be like that for a lot of people. I know it.
People need to realize that reality TV is not reality, and sometimes reality is messy and ugly, but it makes the pretty parts prettier.
Yeah.
And we've had some great topics, and we've had moments where I sat there for 30 seconds completely silent and sounded like an idiot, and I'm okay admitting it. And I think that it's okay to not be polished and not have entertainment right off the bat. And if people aren't going to listen, then they don't. But I hope people see the value in it like you have, and knowing that it's just people talking. And if you disagree, then talk about that topic with someone and figure it out, and then let me know, because I don't got to figure it out. That's for sure.
Get educated.
Yep.
And be open-minded.
Absolutely. Well, let's do it again, man.
Bon voyage.
Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. This show is made possible by listeners like you. Just by listening and sharing it with others, you're supporting the show. However, if you're an overachiever and want to help out even more, go over to my website, iamwoodstock.com. There you'll find a page called The Good Stuff, which has links to all my sponsors, along with any other good stuff I might find along the way. If you have any suggestions on items I need to stick on there, come at me. There's also a link to my Patreon account where you will have access to ad-free content, early releases, and more. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.